Hi everyone, my name's Anne-Marie. Welcome to this Spellbinders card making project. In this episode we're going to be using the dot mandala. Now we've already had a sneaky look at this in our preview for what we've got for the coming month from Spellbinders, from the Cool Vibes collection designed by Stephanie Lowe. But in this project we're going to be using the dot mandala, we're going to be using the two smaller floral stamps and the sentiment stamp. Now the sentiment stamp reads, "Train your mind to see the good in everything." I think that's really positive and a cup half full kind of sentiment, because you know what, we should try and see the good in everything, and it screams positive vibes, does that. Now we're going to use the same sentiment inside and outside the card. Obviously you'd be able to mix and match, you'd be able to use any sentiment you wanted, but for the method that we're going to use, I'm using this because we're using the die to match. So that's the set we're going to use, and as I say, you can always go to my blog and see a full list of everything I've used, and there'll be a link to take you to Spellbinders to get more information about the items that I've used. This is our base card, and it's a 7x5" card, and I'm going to use my bone folder just along the edge to make sure we've got a nice sharp score. Now for anybody who's just joining us, new viewers, because I forget that I get new viewers, and I forget new viewers are here to learn as well. So a bone folder is a tool that you can make a nice sharp edge with along the seam of a card, because even though a card is factory made and factory scored, it's not always got a nice sharp crease on it. You can use your bone folder for curling paper materials, for creasing them and for scoring them for other items as well. But for us, that's what we use it for our card. Now a 7x5 size card is my favourite size. I've said it before, I'll make no secret about it. And I'm just, reaching for my cardometer. And the cardometer is something to give you at home a perspective of the size of card that I'm using. This was designed after somebody asked me if I could show them to get a rough idea of sizes, and I thought long and hard about it, and I thought the easiest way to do it would be to show all the sizes from A4 down to ATCs, so that I can lay the card on it and you get a rough idea of where in the plan you are. A4 in the UK, A4 in the US. A5 in the UK is A4 folded in half. A3 in the US is A4 folded in half. Now it gets very confusing for me after that, because that's the bit I can remember. All you need to know is we're on the blue one, and that is the 7x5" card that we're using. Or in the US you call it a 5x7. So that's the one we're using. And I hope that hasn't confused you. I just hope it gives you a little bit of perspective to see the size that we use. Now we're going to do the inside of the card first. And I've done a little bit of the hard work for you to begin with. And instead of using the floral stamp and die, I've taken not the smallest floral, the next one up, and I've stamped along the bottom edge of a piece of white card, and the white card fits the inside of our base card. I've stamped along, and I've used watercolour pencils just to get some colour onto the florals. And then halfway, well, I'm saying halfway, it's 3/4 of the way through the florals, through the centre of them, I've die cut using the sentiment die that's in the pack as well. So this little bit is now waste, and we can throw that away. So that gives us an aperture for the sentiment. And now I can stick this into the inside of the card. So all the preparation that I've done is the watercolouring of the actual florals. So I've got double-sided tape on the back of it, and I can just add that to the centre of our card like that. And so we've got a nice aperture here, and I've stamped the sentiment on white card. I've taken it through my Xyron machine to get adhesive on the back of it, and then I can simply slot that into the aperture and it fits perfectly. And so we've got the sentiment running through the flowers that we've stamped. So the flowers are flat, we've not used the die for that. The only die we've used on the inside was the die for the sentiment. And we've still got lots of room for your message. You can write nearly an essay in there, and that is a pretty inside to what's going to be a very pretty card. Now, actually, I've forgotten something here. One thing that I got for Christmas was a fine liner pen, and this is, I actually got a black and a white one. Now, they came from the good old auction site, and they were really, really fine. I don't know if you can see that. Very fine pen. And what I've done is I've just added some tiny little dots around the stamp of the flower, just to add a tiny bit more interest. So now we're going to turn our attention to the front. I point the black pen out because we're going to use it on the front as well, and I should have mentioned it at the beginning. Plus, we'll probably use it in different projects as we go through the year. Black and a white fine liner, very, very useful. So now for the front of the card, I'm going to start off and I'm going to add a base colour layer. So this is like a cross between a magenta and a purple kind of. It's a beautiful colour. So I've just got flat tape on the back of it, and I'm just going to add that through the front of our card like so to make the first layer. The next layer is a plain white layer, and I'll be honest, I've used my Spellbinders rectangles A and B to make the layers, and also the Spellbinders rectangles for the layer for the inside. So the white layer is slightly smaller than the, we'll call it, it's like a cross between magenta and a purple. So our purpley magenta layer. So I'm going to pop the white layer on, and I've got an aperture in it, which is the die for the sentiment from the set. Now the only thing to remember is, when you're die cutting into a piece of card and you're using the negative as it were, make sure you use it the right way up and you die cut the right way, because there'd be nothing worse than doing it that way and then thinking, oh, my sentiment's the other way. And believe me, I've done that. So just make sure when you're die cutting you've got your die the right way. I've got flat tape on the back of this, and I'm simply peeling it away, and I can add it to the front of my card like so. Try and get it a little bit central. There we go. Now for the next stage of our card, I've stamped some of the smaller flowers from the set, and I've stamped using black ink, and then I've watercoloured them with water pencils, and I've run them through my Xyron machine. So what I've done is I've got the adhesive on the back of them, and I'm just going to start to add them to the front of our card. and I'm kind of adding them in not an order but a little bit of a pattern, because we're going to follow the pattern from the inside, and because they've got the Xyron adhesive on, we can add them where we want, and we should be able to just move them around a little bit if they're not quite right. So I've got a spare one there, and then what I've done is I've stamped and die cut lots of the larger flowers from the set, this one here. So I'll stamp it and then I die cut it, and I stamped it using black Stazon, and then I've just watercoloured them in 2 colours. I'm saying watercolour brushes. See, I'm still getting it wrong. Watercolour pencils, and then added water to them to get the colour. So I might not use all of them, but I am going to use glossy accents to stick them on. And I have curled the petals slightly on the edges. And where I've positioned the smaller flowers, I'm going to add the larger flowers just between them. So we'll add a bit of glossy accents, like so, and then we can position our flowers so they're kind of trailing and going around the smaller flowers. I'm trying to be quite random with the colours where I'm adding them here, there and everywhere, as it were, and trying to make sure I don't get 2 colours together, but I don't think I'll manage that. I think it'll be more of just add them like so. Obviously at home you can spend a little bit more time putting them together, and maybe you don't want as much space between them, or maybe you think you would prefer different colours. So I'll just add the last one. There we go. And we'll put it a little bit raised there. So those are our flowers. And then this is where our black liner's going to come in. And because we kind of look as though we've added them and they're just stuck on, if that makes sense. And they don't look as though they join. We're simply going to add a few of the little dots in the black liner to go at the sides of flowers, and just as if it's a flourish or a trail from the flower to the next one. Now it's only a fine detail and it's something very small, but it kind of brings it all together, and it makes it have just a trail, as it were, between all of them. Now if you're very artistic, what you could do is add a little bow or a little butterfly to the end of your dots, just so it finishes it off, a bit like the sewing when you're making faux stitches. It kind of just finishes it off as you trail. So there, that's my trail between the flowers. So the last thing for me to do is to add the sentiment onto the front where we've got the gap for the sentiment. Now I've die cut it, I've stamped it first and then I've die cut it, and I've got 3D foam on the back of it, and it will fit above the aperture we've left for it. Now I've left it till last for the simple reason that I didn't want to put it directly over the aperture. I want to leave just a little bit of highlight behind it so that you can see some of the colour from the card, and that's why I didn't be economical with the card at the beginning. I left it as a full sheet so that we could see the colour behind the sentiment. And that is our card finished. Now I think it's a completely different look to some that we normally make, because this to me is very spring-like, it's very clean, it's very, because we've got a lot of the white base left, it makes it very fresh and clean. Yes, I think the word is clean, because normally I'm quite full on with the layers and the dark colours, and I think this is just very pretty and very different. Stands up nicely, will go in a normal envelope. Might want a little bit of bubble wrap to protect your flowers, just because we've curled the edges slightly. But that is such a pretty card, very positive and very spring-like. I think that is a really nice one, and it's such a good effect to get from the set of dies that we've used. And I must point out, there's always something on the back of the packet to give you an idea of how to use them. So that's our take on the dot mandala set, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Please check my blog for so many more projects and to see what else we've coming up with the Spellbinders preview for January and the beginning of February. Please share, because I keep forgetting to say, this is the year of the share. I want to reach as many crafty people, so if you've enjoyed this project, please share it with your crafty friends, whether it's on Facebook or in one of your groups or in forums, because the more people we can reach, the more people will enjoy crafting. So thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time.